U.S. Cyber Command has come a long way in the past 15 years, and it's finally closing the gap between day-to-day operations and the strategic view of cyber. Federal News Network's Anastasia Obis reports. What was the catalyst and the primary strategic concerns, Anastasia, that led to the creation of Cyber Command?
The whole notion of securing cyberspace, it predates the US Cyber Command. It probably goes all the way back to 1980s when you saw what's considered the first cyber conflict. And from an organizational standpoint, back in the 1990s, there were joint task forces for cyber network operations and cyber network defense. So, US Cyber Command was first stood up in 2010 as Sub-Unified Command, and then later on it became a Unified Combatant Command. The Defense Department, it's been dealing with insecurity in cyberspace since we've been leveraging cyberspace. But the late 2000s, during that time, there was this recognition that the operational reality was constant. This concept is called persistent engagement. That means that there is this constant probing from adversaries of US critical networks. At the same time, we have this kind of day-to-day probing, but there is also a perception that emerged that something potentially really big could happen in cyberspace. That's where this kind of analogy, the cyber Pearl Harbor, came from, that something potentially devastating could happen. So there were two things happening at once. There was the operational reality of the day-to-day probing of US networks, and then at the same time, there was this strategic view that something devastating could happen.
So they've been learning a lot about the reality of cyberspace and cyber conflict over the last 15 years. What's been the biggest operational challenges for them?
Again, the perception that we had to prepare for cyber war, that shaped the early days of Cyber Command. Concepts like cyber deterrence influenced how leadership thought about readiness and response. And the leadership thought about cyberspace and cyber deterrence just like they thought about nuclear deterrence. And that's why that concept was reinforced by the fact that Cyber Command was under Stratcom, and Strategic Command is our nuclear command. And again, that wasn't the operational reality. That wasn't where adversaries were. Like I said, there was this gap between the strategic view and operational reality. So later on, there were changes in presidential authorities that allowed for the operational reality of persistent engagement and the Defense Department strategy of Defend Forward to go into effect. And that was during the first Trump administration back in 2018, 2020. Defend Forward, by the way, is about proactive engagement. It's about persistent presence, and that includes these hunting forward operations that they've been doing with allies to detect malware and adversary activities on allies' networks and then implement those lessons learned. The Trump administration established the core cyber strategy of persistent engagement and Defend Forward. The Biden administration continued that. Now, the extent to which the strategy is implemented, kind of the restrictions in place, that is still an open question. Here's Richard Harknett. He's the director of the Center for Cyber Strategy and Policy at the University of Cincinnati.
We're early in this. We're 15 years into command, but really as a unified command, only a few years. I think it's a matter of understanding that we're evolving to the space. In part, my own view is that we're catching up to some of our cyber adversaries. So I think it's a matter of, for your listeners, to think not about, hey, what's a measure of effectiveness today? It's what's the trend line? And I think the trend line is that operational reality and that perception of the strategy and the strategic perception, that gap is closing, right? We're starting to understand why are our adversaries not blowing things up? Why are they below the threshold of armed conflict? Is because they can strategically gain in that space.
So they've been learning a lot over this last 15 years, and now they're thinking about a CYBERCOM 2.0. Are they planning for that? And if so, what can we expect?
From what's been revealed publicly, it's kind of more of an innovative evolution of Cyber Command. It's about adjusting to this operational reality of constant engagement that we talked about. The plan is kind of divided into four main buckets. It looks like they're going to have a new force generation model for how each service provides cyber forces to CYBERCOM. Then there's going to be an advanced cyber training center to scale training across the military cyber forces. Then there's going to be a cyber warfare innovation center, and that's going to help with engagement with industry. And the last one is a talent management task force to oversee workforce, because that's been an issue for Cyber Command.
So I think we have the strategy right now in terms of defend forward and persistent engagement. That's what Trump 45 had introduced. I would hope that there's a doubling down on that moving forward. Cyber, you just can't quit. You don't have any day that you can take off. And so we have legacy organizational artifacts that need to evolve. That's partly the relationships with the services. It's partly in terms of how you develop capabilities, how you fund. And I think that's what the 2.0, I would hope, addresses.
They're going to come out with a CYBERCOM 2.0, and they're also talking about a separate cyber branch. What do we know about that so far?
That debate has been unfolding for quite some time. The Pentagon leadership really hasn't been sold on the idea, and they've been really actively pushing against it. But there are some lawmakers that have been pushing for it. There is a provision in the 2025 NDAA, the Defense Policy Bill, that requires the Defense Department to conduct an evaluation of alternative organizational models for the cyber forces of the armed forces. That provision was watered down from the initial provision. We don't even have a date for when the study is due. However, proponents of a separate cyber branch are saying that the U.S. military's shortcomings in cyberspace, and I quote, demand nothing less than the establishment of an independent cyber service. It goes back to the workforce issues that Cyber Command is dealing with, recruitment, retainment, development of capabilities, etc. But the Pentagon leadership is really pushing for Cyber Command 2.0. They're saying that plan addresses the issues that Cyber Command's been dealing with.
Well, it'll certainly be interesting to see how the new Pentagon leadership resolves all of those different challenges. Federal News Network's Anastasia Obis. Check out her story at federalnewsnetwork.com.